the conversation has to go down to, okay, folks, what do we really value? You know, why are we humans on this planet? And, you know, Dr. Rao has scoped it out. He says, Jamin says in the latest Vegan Collective Intelligence, that's the goal eventually, is that holo ahimsa and a vegan world. And those other 5 concepts are 7, is it 7 core values? Nonviolent world. But yeah, we have to have the conversation, James, that you're saying, insofar as, well, what do we value? Is it all about the buck and allowing certain people to, you know, offshore their enterprises so that they can exploit countries that have less health and safety, social programs, worker rights, and everything else, and so consequently, you know, your iPhone and my iPad are all made in these countries where they don't have the same health, safety, human rights standards that we have here, and so we offshored all that to exploit people, and environmental protections are less in these other countries often too. So, you know, is that what we value? Just allowing people to make great amounts of money, and we'll, you know, get the trickle down, the drips?
Hey guys, can you guys hear me okay? Yep, okay. All right. Bluetooth, speaker. Okay. How is it now? I just connected to my AirPods. So far so good. Okay, thanks you guys. And you'll probably notice I dropped off for half a minute there. Sorry about that. Unintentional. Anyway, so we're back to the bigger picture. And you know, here's the thing, it's easy to get attached and focused in on, you know, one particular solution, or even hyper solution like Operation Stone Soup, and get right into the details. But I'd like to take us back to the bigger picture for a moment, where you have the conversation. Let's say we've popularized the conversation, and all these different groups are coming up with different hyper solutions, right? It's become the talk of the world. How do we save life on Earth? And here we are talking Operation Stone Soup, whole food, plant-based, SRM, everything else. Somebody else may be saying, no. It's all about spirit. We just need to all come together and, you know, meditate at the same time and say, Ya, Nam, Yo, Renge, you know, whatever. You know, okay, fine. You know, okay, that's a different, you know, hyper solution. Another one may be all about, all right, you know, we need to cull the human population. We need to kill 90% of humans. Any volunteers? And no hands go up immediately. Okay, well, back to the drawing board. Well, my point is, there can be vastly different hyper solutions, right? And related to that is the point that I started to make earlier, that it's like we're all on this island in the Pacific, all these progressive communities that get that life is, that we're going down, and that we need to do something radical, but we don't necessarily know what. What I'm suggesting is, if on Gilligan's Island, we first had a revolution on the island and later spread it to the world, but we started out focusing on a revolution on the island. And that revolution would be characterized by, let's say we did the revolution, it was successful, and suddenly I'm Gilligan, I'm the dictator of the island, let's say, right? So what I would mandate is that, you know, we form a network of conversations just within the progressives as quickly as possible about the conversation and about hyper solutions. And there would be like a giant scoreboard in the middle of the island that would basically keep a tally of which hyper solutions like Operation Stone Soup, like Kill 90% of Humanity, like Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, like whatever, all these different hyper solutions, you would see a stack ranking. Currently ranking #1 is Operation Stone Soup, followed by Cull Humanity, followed by Spirit, followed by whatever. Okay. All of this with a view to enabling the best ideas to bubble to the top. Not that they necessarily will, but that's a different conversation. How do we structure the game so that the best ideas bubble to the top? But let's assume that we've done that. The best ideas are bubbling to the top. This enables the progressive community the progressive communities, plural, on Gilligan's Island to come together and start to organize and rally around specific hyper solutions, so we could get a critical mass of supporters of Operation Stone Soup on the island, right? And then the way I'm thinking of the big picture, metaphorically, I love to think in metaphors because it's a way to simplify, is that let's say that on the island, the 3 leading hyper solutions are, working away, and they're in friendly competition, let's say, right? And let's say that each of them is working on the messaging, the press conference, the whatever it's going to take to get the message and the specific hyper solution to go viral all around the world, right? And the first one that gets it together, that can do an effective press conference to promote their hyper solution, they get out there and they do it. But they don't just go out there with the hyper solution. They lead with that. But then they say, look, the hyper solution is Operation Stone Soup, and it's centered around feeding people, but it's way bigger. And it came out of addressing the conversation. How do we save life on Earth, right? So at this press conference, yes, we want you to know about Operation Stone Soup and get involved. But the most important way of getting involved right now immediately is getting into the conversation, right? Looking at the different hyper solutions that have been proposed, seeing which one or ones you might want to support and getting in on those. Or if you have an idea for a hyper solution that's not out there, put it out there. And this press conference, so it's about announcing and launching the hyper solution, but it's also about promoting the collective intelligence and the community. And that's where I see the opportunity to cross the chasm from these early adopters to, substantial segments of the population way beyond our teeny tiny numbers right now, right? So I see it as, again, you've got Gilligan's Island, all these different communities sort of talking with each other, sort of not. We promote the meme of the conversation. We say it's time for the conversation. We cannot delay. Yeah.
Isn't the biggest conversation, it really is, we have a choice, people, life or destruction. I didn't say death because death is just part of life. We can actually, if we got into a better headspace, we could actually be very comfortable about dying, but we deny death in our culture. So let's say it's a choice between it's a choice between life or destruction is the big conversation. And we have to say to everybody, even if they think they're an environmental organization doing a lot of good, and we say, so you're concerned about free transit, you're concerned about green buildings, and you want to be involved in how City Hall money is spent. That's what you came up with. How is that consistent with life versus destruction when we have 76 billion animals being slaughtered annually, creating massive amounts of various kinds of pollution and consuming so much food to feed them to get 1 unit, 5 to 20 units of input to get 1 unit of output, and you're not talking about that? We have to confront them with that conversation, life or destruction? Are you consistent? Are you prioritizing where you're putting your focus? And if you're ignoring and you're not willing to entertain conversations about this massive industry that's creating so much havoc and slaughter, then there's something seriously wrong with you. And when you're ready to think about what you're prioritizing, the Vegan World 2026 is always over here waiting, and that's going to grow. We're going to grow it. We're going to even have a vegan friendly world 2026 for those people that are kind of in between, but they know they want a vegan world eventually. And so then that is the group under the umbrella group. That's the philosophy by which we do eventually create a collective superintelligence. The collective superintelligence is already owned by the people like the NSA and ThinThread. Bill Binney, William Binney invented ThinThread, and there's been subsequent iterations. So it's already there. It exists, the ability to just pull out any conversation, even this one, at any moment. But it's just not in the hands of people that are on the life team versus the destruction team.
Yeah, good stuff. One of the great things about Operation Stone Soup and Brooklyn Eats is that we actually don't need to have the conversation about vegan versus meat packing versus life versus death, et cetera, et cetera. We simply announce, hey, we're feeding everyone, and here's why. And it's happening. So far from waiting to get some sort of buy-in from everybody or whatever, which will never happen, we just go out there and do it and say, hello world, this is what we're doing. The time is now. We have no time to delay. How did we get here? Well, we engaged in the conversation.
And well, I guess you could just leave out the destruction part, because what you were asking for is, okay, we moved out of a specific, even a pilot project on a certain block in Brooklyn into, you wanted, what is the big conversation, the meta conversation? So it is still life versus destruction, but are you just saying we'll just focus on the life and keep it positive? But, eventually you have to say, well, why is life important?
No, totally. No, I totally agree with you there. I was just what I was really addressing was, it seems like a lot of the people in the vegan community, go on the attack mode and say, hey, look, we need to bring down these, meat industry, and it's very controversial and all that. Even for people who are pre-vegan, who would probably be inclined to become vegan, if you get in their face too much and frankly get violent about it, you'll scare them away. And so I was simply making the point that with Brooklyn Eats, there is no confrontation. There's just, here's food. Would you like the food? You don't have to say yes. I'm not putting a gun to you. We're not here to force feed anyone, but would you like food? It's just so simple. And then, people ask, well, what is the food? That's obviously the next question. Well, it's whole food, plant-based, immune boosting, nutritious, complete nutrition. And, and see, that's where we break out the cement mixer, like you were talking about, Myles, and load it up once, hit the on switch, crank away for however many cycles, and then serve it up, right? So it can be incredibly efficient. And then since we're not suffering the calorie losses by running it through the cow, so to speak, right? It can be phenomenally economical, phenomenally efficient. But anyway, the bigger picture that I was talking about is that one of these hyper solutions, maybe it's Operation Stone Soup, maybe it's a different one, but one of them is going to break out of Gilligan's Island, right? And the metaphor I use, rather than travel to New York City and do the press conference, is one group on the Gilligan's Island we'll figure out a way to launch a flare that goes up into space and gets the attention of the world, right? Whichever
Yeah, so
one
I
does it.
suppose what you're bringing to the table is, sort of deciding on the psychological approach to introduce the message such that people don't get defensive, don't turn off, but you ease them in, and food connects to people, and as time goes on, psychologically people will, once they've established a relationship with you, then you'll have the opportunity to say, well, there's a lot of bad stuff that we do need to talk about, if you're not already aware that there's all these costs to the world, to the planet, that are being externalized, costs of operation that are not being attended to, they're being externalized. And that's why the Gulf of Mexico is now one of the largest dead zones of the oceans. And it's not just the Gulf of Mexico, but every estuary, just about of every large river is a dead zone. Lake Winnipeg, I just recently heard, which is a very large lake here in Canada and Manitoba, but it's not very deep. It's basically to the point where you can't swim in it because there's so much effluent coming off of, from all the way from Alberta, where I am, goes through Saskatchewan and then into Manitoba and Lake Winnipeg, and it's picked up all this pollution from externalized costs of industrial agriculture. So anyway, yeah. But you reach people first by becoming friends with them, and what better way to become a friend with somebody than to serve them a meal. I'm going to take a break, and I will be probably listening in on Twitch, but I'll be back for the Divine Feminine session.
Awesome, and that starts in 50 minutes. All right. Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, Myles.
You hear me there, Jim?
Yeah.
I'm just going to say there, to add to that conversation there anyway, first of all, is like, yeah, you're right. We need to talk the conversation. We need to talk about the bigger pictures. The press conference has been launched in a sense, in response to the situation with the pandemic and the best advice by the science and everything else about that situation, pandemic situation, is that people need to stay in their homes. The big problem at the moment in America is that people are running out of money and they're not properly being supported by their government, unlike the rest of Europe, where the government's just literally fucking made that's it, end the story. This is what's happening. We can't force people in home and give them nothing to live on. So everyone I'm on social welfare and I get fucking 350 fucking something euros every 2 weeks. Plus my rent is paid. You know what I mean? This is because of the pandemic situation, because I'm forced to cocoon in my home because of my health situation. But that's my government looking after me the right fucking way. But it's not happening over here. Your states have been refused funding and everything by the federal government and all that. It's all fucking fucked up. Point is, the press conference has been launched in response to that situation and in response to scientific fucking feedback. The best thing to do is keep people in their homes, and they can't stay in there. They have to go out and either work to get the money to feed themselves or just go and get the food to themselves. So their main problem is just the main things they really need is a bit of exercise during the day and to be fed so that they can stay at home. That's why we're there to launch the feed the Brooklyn Eats thing, right? That's sort of that. But when you launch it, you're saying we are here because of a growing number of issues that are facing us as a humanity as at the moment, with the pandemic situation being our most urgent need to be addressed. And how do we address it? Feeding people and keeping them at home is the way we suggest we're doing it. And the pilot scheme in Brooklyn is to show that it can be done. And it can be done by the contributions of other communities all over the country and world, whatever, if they so choose to get involved. That is one solution that was brought up by this collective intelligence in response to our urgent need. but we are also and have been trying to come up with solutions for the other myriad of urgent needs that are on our doorstep, rapidly coming down our road, and no one is looking up to see the headlights. Or we are all being dimmed, the lights are being dimmed by us in most situations. We need to address these situations, and soon they're going to be upon us. And the only way we can address them is to get together collectively and face the conversation about what is actually happening with us and how do we do something about it. That's your press conference statement, because it can't be made about veganism or any other group or any other plan. It's about collective plans, collective intelligence. You say you have a plan to feed people in Brooklyn and we're going to give them food. You don't even say it's all plant-based food. You don't say it's vegan food. You just say we're going to give them food if they wish to have it. When they say they wish to have it, you give them the food. If they say, where's the meat? You say, we are supplying nutritious foods that will help your immune system and that will give you all the proteins that you need during the day. You don't need meat. We don't back that side of the food industry because it's unnecessary. It's a waste of 2/3 of our foods and that we eat anyway every day, because we only eat meat as one side dish. The rest of our food anyway is plant-based, whether which. People just don't think that way. Like, meat is only one side part of the dish. Anyway, we don't supply the meat. If they want to have meat and add to that, that's their own. That's up to themselves to source that or have it delivered some other way. That's not part of it. And the reasons for not supplying the meat with food is here. There's an information leaflet. There's some video links. That's why we don't supply the meat, because it's not helping one of the solutions that we need to address in order to cool the planet and everything else with the other situations that we need to address. It's just an information leaflet with the food, along with recipes and everything else. And there you go, Bob's your uncle. Let them research it themselves. They'll take the food if they're hungry, and if they really, really want meat, they'll source that themselves somewhere else anyway. Let it not be about veganism or plant-based foods, politics, you name it. It's just that everything has fucking gone wrong, and we need to address it. Simple as that. That's what it's about. The main issues. Sorry for the rant.
No, don't be sorry, James. This is what the block party is all about. What you just said is what the block party is all about. So no apology. To the contrary, thank you. All right, looks like Myles had to jump off. We're still recording, broadcasting live on Twitch. I'd like to respond to what you said, James. And here's another point. Let me just introduce this first. This is one I haven't introduced before, or at least it's been years. And that is this. The crows are saying good morning. They want their breakfast, so we'll take a break in a few. But the world, I think a big part of the reason that the world has not embraced the death spiral, right? Number one, it's not a fun thing to think about. But number two, no one has a solution for it. No one's talking about a solution. Everyone's talking about the problems. Very few are talking solutions. And even fewer are talking convincingly about solutions. And so I have a hypothesis. It goes like this. If you present the world with just a problem, this massive problem, death spiral, etc., the reaction of the world is going to be what the reaction has been, which is to ignore it, right, and deny it. On the other hand, if you show them, hello world, here's the problem, and here's the solution, and we're implementing it right now, want to play, right? That's a whole different conversation than, hey, we got this big problem, and I guess we're all going to die.
I think you might have misunderstood me there, anyway, Jim, because
that's
not what I meant.
No. I wasn't actually trying to. That what I just said was not a response to what you said. I actually totally agree with what you said, just to prove the point that
You can't, I understand that. You can't just dump all that information on the general public. Just like you can't just turn around and tell people, here's food, you're going to eat that because you can't, and you can't have meat. You can't do that already. You have to approach it in the right way, which is the way I suggested. No, all right, I get what you're saying. No, I just, my point is that we're there to let them know that the conversation has already started, but there's people that, people just need to get on board with the conversation, because obviously only so many heads put together can achieve something, but lots of heads together will achieve a lot. And that's what we're doing. And we're just showing that only the few heads so far have come up with these few solutions. But we all, as a collective, need to get together and think about the bigger solutions for the other myriad of problems facing us. Don't have to mention any of them, just a myriad of problems that are facing us that have been scientifically backed up. And we haven't even time to address them yet because we're caught with this pandemic situation. So this is one solution to help us try and deal with that as best we can, and show people that when you come together and work together collectively like this, think together, then we'll figure it out. We have to figure out this pandemic situation. This COVID is not going anywhere, according to the science here anyway in Europe. It's something we're going to be living with, just like we never ever got rid of the flu that came in 1918 either. Like, if you think about it, that we've lived with that flu ever since. We've never had a cure for it. We don't have a vaccine for it. All flus, they just come, they linger, they do their damage if they can, and they come back again. Same with the situation now. It's going to linger. It'll come back in the winter or the autumn, and it's going to be worse when it comes back. So if people don't stay at home, they're basically looking for fucking trouble, isn't it? That's all they say. So we're offering a solution to help them stay at home. And that's just one of the solutions that came up with in the collective intelligence. And we need more heads in the collective intelligence to think of solutions for all the other situations we're facing now. Sorry, Emery, carry on.
I just wanted to add something, had a concern here, because, when they have these big problems, they present the problem and then they present the solution, and the solution that they want to bring in is vaccinations for everybody, vaccinations for everybody, and we track everybody. So this is a conversation that's going on, another kind of conversation that is going on among humans, among people in the world affected by this, is getting back to some resemblance of a life, outside of your enclosure. So a lot of people are looking deeply into how this came about, and the weaponization of it that is quite apparent, because they have weaponized these biologicals to create havoc among the people, and to bring in their way of controlling the herd, the stock, the livestock, right? And like Gates, he's behind a lot of these vaccination things. He wants to inject everybody on the planet, and that's a big concern. I just, we're pretty awake, and I know what's going on to a large extent in the way I see it. And the conversation can go on, but let's include a few different aspects of the situation. Yeah, it's good to keep track. I, for one, I'm not ready to pump these vaccines into my veins. I mean, I may be 65, but I don't want to die tomorrow. Okay, I don't want to have problems. I have enough problems. I'm taking medication. So, it's disgusting. It's just disgusting.
Well, to be honest, I put your mind at ease there anyway, Emery, in a sense, like, but because the science here, like, there is no vaccination, and there probably won't be either. As I said, like, they're not going to find a cure for it, and even if they do, there's going to be a number two, that's number two, a number three, and a number four, and another one after that, and it'll affect us in different ways. So there's no vaccines. Don't worry about that. It's just a case of we have to figure out a new way of living with it. And that's what we're talking about, coming up with new solutions to figure out new ways of living with it. Because that's our future. That's our future. There is no vaccine. No mind all that.
They have people convinced, James. They have people brainwashed into believing that the goddamn vaccine works. They gotta have people lining up for it because there won't be enough for everybody. Do you understand how they manipulate things? That's what's going on.
I do. I understand I do understand how people are being manipulated. I understand that. But to be honest with you, I understand you.
My vaccine. I gotta need my vaccine.
I understand you're upset, Emery, and that's what I'm saying. I understand that people are,
I'm very upset. I'm irate. I know it's coming down the pike. If I don't get my vaccine, I won't be able to buy anything at the grocery. I won't be able to go anywhere. I'm going to have to show my papers. Did you get the freaking vaccine? No, I didn't. So what? What now? You going to kill me?
Well,
I'm not down with the plan. I'm not.
I don't know where you're getting some of those. Like I said, there's a lot of misinformation out there, but that's not the case here, and that's not the science here. There is no vaccine. There's no one going to force you to take a vaccine because there is no vaccine. Simple as that.
Not true.
So all that talk, is
not true.
Actually, it turns out, gentlemen, and I want to welcome Jaja, if I'm saying it right. Jaja, JJ, please let us know how to pronounce your name best. But Jaja is part of a company that's actually working on a vaccine, and would love to hear what's going on in that department. Jaja, if there's any updates you have for us. Anyway, feel free to, she just jumped off. But anyway, she had recently applied to Radish and mentioned that they are working on a vaccine. So anyway, she popped in once before briefly. Anyway, I'll tell you what, you guys, it's almost 8:30. We've been at it for 2.5 hours. I need to feed the crows and take a little bit of a break here. How are you guys feeling break-wise? Good? Okay. How long of a break shall we take?
I'm good with any suggestion. I'm going to grab something to eat in a minute.
Okay. All right. Shall we say 20 minutes? Shall we meet back at 10 till? Emery says 30. Yeah, take 30 if you need, Emery, but I'll tell you what, I'll just be back here at 8:50 in 23 minutes, but you guys show up when you need to. I'll pause recording in the meantime.